Welcome to episode 70 of New Hampshire Knits, coming to you from the gorgeous state of New Hampshire, where our state motto is knit free or die. Today is Thursday, November 30th, and I'm your host, Claire. This episode is sponsored by thewoollythistle.com. The Woolly Thistle brings the best of British yarns to us here in the United States and Canada. Coming very soon to the Woolly Thistle is yarn by the Knitting Goddess. If you listen to Knit British, you will be familiar with the Knitting Goddess's work and her mission of producing yarn that is grown, spun and dyed in the UK, all from her base in a lovely town called Harrogate in North England. Some of her offerings here at the Woolly Thistle will include her Wensleydale Shetland blend of hand-dyed and gorgeous yarn. It's so sheepy and beautiful. Some of her One Farm yarn, Brit Sock, self-striping in cakes and skeins, and her BFL nylon blends. All of these are in 4-ply or fingering weight, and I'm so excited to be bringing the Knitting Goddess to the Woolly Thistle. The Knitting Goddess will be available at the Woolly Thistle in the next few days, so keep watch on Instagram and Facebook. Let the Woolly Thistle do the international shipping, so you don't have to. Thank you, new listeners and returning listeners. It's been a while since we had a chat. Good grief, it's actually been quite a long time. Not for the lack of trying, though. Between power outages and computers that are getting too full to hold storage and my subsequent deleting of files. Episode 69 had been recorded twice and lost twice. So I'm very happy to be here trying again. I needed to take a wee break from the trying, and I've given up on episode 69. So here is episode 70, and fingers crossed you will get to hear it. Since we last spoke, we had a power outage for 7 days at the beginning of November. For us, that means no water, electricity, heat, phones, or internet. So we were in complete blackout here. But many of you saw on Instagram that I was working by stealing some of the power from a small generator we have. The small generator keeps our freezer going, which we have full of pig. So we need to keep that going. But I was able to steal a little bit of that to power up the laptop and the printer. And you saw me filling orders by headlamp, and we even stayed in a hotel one night right at the beginning of the outage. It was such a surprise storm. It was the high winds that did us in, and actually did a lot of New Hampshire in. But we were one of the last towns to get put back up, and we were one of the last houses in the last town to get back online. So it was the longest I've ever gone without power. Before that, we had a 4-day outage. Maybe 8 years ago, and they did a lot of tree work along the roadsides where the power lines are, and really since then it's been great. So losing power is not a lot of fun. I don't think it matters whether it's summer or winter. Winter might actually be preferable. You just have to keep warm, which means, you know, having a wood stove or a gas heater. Whereas in the summer, things just get really, you know, smelly quickly. Although our house got really pretty bad pretty quickly too, because we didn't have time to prepare, because we didn't know it was going to happen. We hadn't saved up water, so dishes were dirty in the dishwasher and piling up by the sink, that kind of stuff. Oh, and the other thing too was, because the roads were so bad with power lines down, the kids were off school. They only went to school one day that week, so not only was I home in the cold, in the dark, but so were the kids. There was no snow to go out and play in or anything. So yeah, it was a long week. But anyway, all that is done. The farm has been pretty busy too. The pigs met their fate during that power outage. It was scheduled to happen, and so we went ahead. What you really need for that job is a lot of water. So the only hardship was having to truck in gallons and gallons of water. So it just wasn't readily available, but we had enough to have the job done, and it was done. And right now we are waiting for our order of pork to come back. And we have lots of people who have bought shares in the pork or the pigs, and we'll be getting that out to them. There's a Coop Cast later, so you will get to enjoy a visit with the ladies and Lewis, of course. And I've been knitting quite a bit more lately, it feels like. The knitting had taken a back seat for a wee while. Well, I was not finding I had time for it, but I don't know. I think maybe I'm staying up a little later at night, or I'm remembering to have my knitting in the car. I went through a long spell of not having any knitting in the car, and I wouldn't realize till I was out the driveway and on my way. But I've rectified that. And, maybe saying a little bit more of, to hell with the housework, So my knitting, not that I ever lost my mojo. I really wanted to knit, but I just wasn't finding the time. And then when I had a bit of time, I didn't have the energy for it. I just wanted to go to bed. So yes, lots of knitting is happening now, and that makes me very happy. So yeah, apologies for any repetition you might hear, or certainly there'll be omissions, because I've kind of done this. This will be my third go around of the same material in parts, as far as what I've knitted and stuff. And I don't know now if I've told you before or not. But let's get started, shall we? This episode includes On the Needles, Off the Needles, a Coop Cast, a Woolly Thistle update, and then we'll wrap it up. So On the Needles right now, like I said, quite a bit. The latest cast on is Lovage by Marie Wallin. Oh, that's something else. You see, there's so much. Rhinebeck has happened. I was on a retreat. I guess I'll just try and tell you this stuff as it comes up. So this will be a rambly episode, perhaps. Hopefully not. I'll try and keep it concise enough to be enjoyable. I was on a retreat with my friends Emily, who is Fibre Town on YouTube, and Sarah of Fibre Trek on YouTube, and Sarah of Yarns at Yanhu, which is a wonderful audio podcast. So the four of us rented a cabin in the woods of New York, up in the Catskills, and Emily was wearing her Lovage sweater, which I remember seeing her knit not too long ago on her podcast, and it is beautiful. I mean, it looked great on the podcast, but seeing it in person just floored me. I was smitten at first glance. To describe the pattern, it's a Marie Wallin pattern. And of course, Marie Wallin is huge. I mean, she's a huge designer anyway, but she just came out with her book Shetland, which is taking the world by storm, and rightly so. It is a beautiful book with wonderful patterns. And so Marie Wallin had made the Lovage design a while back, and it's a sweater knit bottom up with a yoke, colorwork yoke, but it's a large colorwork yoke that comes down to probably just above the elbow, or maybe a little higher, but lots of small motifs. So it's not like a huge motif. It's lots of little motifs making up this very large, beautiful colorwork yoke. And Emily wore hers very well, and she'd knit the body of hers out of Blacker Yarns Manx wool, which I don't carry anymore because I don't think Blacker has any. They have Manx blends, but this was a pure Manx, if I remember right. Oh, gorgeous. I loved the color. And then Emily had worked up her own color work, sort of riffing off of the pattern, but using her own stash. And it just came out very beautiful. So I had to cast one on as soon as I got home. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I did. And I'm using Jamieson and Smith Supreme for the body, and I'm using color 2007, which has one of these wonderful Muglet or Uglet names, but I can't actually recall what the proper Shetland name is for 2007. But it's a very oatmeal-y color. It's not too dark and it's not too light. And then I had to select 7 shades for the yoke, and I'm using Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight for my color work. And I'm riffing off of the pattern too. The pattern was actually written for Rowan Fine Tweed yarn, which is discontinued, I believe. So because I'm using Jamieson and Smith, I'm color matching, but I'm also going a little off-piste as well. What I'm really finding with this pattern in the color work is it breaks all the rules. Everybody always talks about having high contrast and looking at things in black and white and seeing that contrast, but Marie Wallin really plays with that and has a lot of similar contrast or similar values in color right up against each other, and it makes for a very soft, muted palette, and it's really exciting to play with that. I've been doing a lot of black and white, finding contrast, then finding I've got, you know, maybe 3 or 4 balls of the same value and trying to figure out if that's going to be okay because they're not the same as what she did, and da 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 da. There's going to be a lot of experimenting. I cast on a sleeve right away, which was, you know, just the Supreme until we started the color work. And then I did the color work as far as I could on the sleeve. And I knit that up super fast. It only took I don't know, maybe 3 days or something to knit that whole sleeve. And I loved it. The 1x1 ribbing was done on a US 1, the body was done on a US 2, and you use a US 3 for the color work. And I think my gauge is pretty good. And the color work is fun. So yeah, I'm going to really enjoy doing that. So since then, I've knit the other sleeve, stopping short of the color work. And now I'm working on the body. And it's bottom up, so I'm working on the rib right now and almost finished that. It's a 1x1 rib on US 1s, and it takes quite a while. But I'm almost finished that, and then I'm going to probably mess around with the body a little bit with shaping. And then when I get to the point of starting the yoke, I will probably knit a color work swatch. I was using the sleeve as my swatch, but you can only go so far with the color work on the sleeve. So I think what I'll do is maybe I'll just continue up the sleeve and then cut it off, because I'm already knitting in the round. I want to do the swatch in the round, and where I have a sleeve already, I could do that. I just want to see and play with the colors before I commit to knitting the whole yoke, and then having to rip that back because I don't like something. I think that's the plan. So that is going great guns. I seem to have a pretty good capacity for mindless knitting. I enjoy it. I think Emily likes to do the fun stuff first, and she actually converted her pattern to top down so that she could get on with the yoke and really play with the color before zooming through the body. But I actually like knitting bottom up so that I can spend the time on the boring stuff, air quotes, boring stuff, because that's when I do my percolating and I'm ready to do the color work and the thinking when I get to it. Then also on the needles is my candy cane socks, and these are West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply special limited edition socks for Christmas or the holidays this year. And it's a sort of creamy color with a bright red and a bright green, very Christmas green and red stripes. It's just fun and lovely. And I'm knitting just my usual sock, a 64 stitch top down sock. I'm doing an afterthought heel because of the self striping, and I didn't want to do contrasting heels and toes. It's not that I didn't want to, I just haven't done it. I wanted to do afterthought heels, haven't done them for a while. And I started them for me, but as soon as I finished one sock, the little miss tried them on, or tried that sock on, and would you believe it, they fit her really nicely. So I think she'll have them for Christmas. I'm knitting them on US 1s. Yeah, and it's a very quick knit. I'm zooming down the foot of the second sock now. Also on the needles, this was on the needles before, and perhaps I've talked about it, not sure if you heard about it. The Peary Fleurs hat, which is a design by Kate Davies, and this is knit on US 3s, and I'm using Jamieson & Smith 2-ply in the 6 shades called for in the pattern. And I'm almost finished. And I'm knitting this hat really as a shop sample. This is probably the third time I've knit the hat. It's a very friendly pattern for new color work knitters, so I would recommend it for that. You get to do a bit of corrugated rib, and of course you get to follow the color work chart, which is a nice simple chart, and it's very gratifying seeing these little flowers pop up. So I'm almost finished that, and when I will be putting a kit together for you, so that if you want to knit the Peary Fleurs hat, you will be able to purchase a kit from the Woolly Thistle. It will have the 6 shades called for and a few extras for fun. But that's down the pike, not quite done yet. And then also on the needle is my Tidal sweater, which is sweater number 3 from Tidal Yarns. This was my big purchase at Rhinebeck this year. Rhinebeck was awesome. The weather was so warm, it wasn't really sweater weather, and I take my hat off to all the girls out there who were wearing their sweaters that day. I had on a Tidal cardigan. I did wear one, but I didn't wear what I was planning to wear, which would have been my Glenfiddich cardigan or my Bernere vest, which I'll tell you about shortly. So Rhinebeck was great, and Tidal Yarns was there for the first time, and I hope she had a great show. We made a beeline to her as soon as we got in. Both Amber and I wanted to buy yarn from her, and we didn't want it to run out before we got there. So we both got exactly what we wanted, and I think we both bought the same pattern. And so mine is a top down sweater, and you start with the neck shaping and then increasing for the shoulders, and then you put the sleeves or the sleeve holes on waste yarn, and then you just go round and round for the body, and that's where I'm at now. So that's coming along, some more mindless knitting, which I really enjoy. And what's nice about these sweaters is they're really just one size. They're loose fitting, flowy, 4-ply fingering weight, so you know they sit really nice. They're nice layering pieces, and you don't have to worry about knitting in the shaping, so it's very much vanilla. It's a vanilla sweater. So yeah, Rhinebeck was great. Very good friend Amber came along with me, and we had fun giving out Woolly Thistle totes to everybody that we could, and the podcaster meetup was really fun. Loved meeting new friends and old friends that I only see at Rhinebeck, and so yeah, really good time. Lovely weather. It was super weather, but it was just too warm. Off the needles. So that's all that's on the needles. That's plenty, right? A couple of sweaters, a hat, and a pair of socks. That's pretty good. And they're all making progress. Off the needles, I just finished a Ricky hat for my little girl, my little miss, who's going to be 12 in a couple of weeks. And I'm knitting that on, I forget what size, whatever the pattern called for. I think it was a US 7 or something. And funnily enough, I had started this hat a long time ago, and I was knitting it on my Addies, and I was beyond frustrated knitting this hat because the cable of the needles was really stiff and had its own memory and was not being helpful at all. So as I was doing the decreases on the crown, I just had a lot of arguments with this cable. And of course, if anybody is able to come and change out needles, it's me. But did I do that? No, I'm stubborn. No, these are the needles that I'm using. I don't need another set of needles. I'm going to finish it. Ugh, whatever, right? So I just set it aside. But then she was like, Mom, remember that hat you were knitting? It's getting cold. I'd love that hat. And so I got it back out, only to find I had like maybe 5 rounds left before it was finished. So I just fought with those needles some more. I won, finished the hat. This was knitted with Woolberry Fibre Company's DK weight in a lovely, I don't know what she called it anymore, but it was a lovely creamy white base with pretty speckles of green and blue and pink, and just the way I like it, really pretty. And so Heather loves her new hat. She did think she lost it, but she found it. It was in her bag. So the less said about that, the better. Right, and then what else is off the needles? My Bernere vest, which I knit using Berlin Yarn Company's DK weight, which has come and gone. I don't know if Meg will be milling up any more DK. I have a feeling that the 4-ply is here to stay, so I don't know if she'll be making any more DK. I took advantage of it being in the shop and knitted myself a vest. And this vest is based off of the pattern Carla with a K by Sarah Hatton. When I met Meg on her island of Bernere in the Outer Hebrides in August, she was wearing this sweater when we went outside to look at the sheep and the standing stones and stand in the wind with the sea and all of that. Oh, such evocative memories. And she was wearing this lovely sweater in her Hebridean yarn, and I loved it. It was a cabled front and just stockinette sleeves and back. And when I got home, I decided I wanted to knit it, but looking at it on the pattern, it was not quite as flattering as as it was on Meg. And I was a little worried that maybe this wasn't a pattern I wanted to knit anymore. But I thought about it, and I decided that, you know, it was still pretty warm here when I was knitting it, which I think affected my decision making, that I would make a sleeveless vest because it is DK weight and it's cables, so it's using a lot of yarn, and maybe it was just going to be a bit too warm as a full sweater. So I decided I would modify it, and it was pretty easy to modify, but I feel like I had to go through a lot of steps to do it. The sweater originally had a round neck. It had stockinette sleeves and a stockinette back, so only the front had cables. It was knitted in pieces, and I decided that I would knit it in pieces too because I've never knit a garment in pieces, and it would just be a front and a back. But because I was knitting it in pieces, I really didn't relish the thought of all that purling back on the stockinette purl back rows on the back. So I went ahead and did cables on both the front and the back, because then I'd be knitting as much as cabling and life would be good. And actually that worked out really, really well. I changed the shape of the neck from a round to a V-neck, and I worked the numbers from Anne Budd's book of top-down sweaters. And I had to adjust the pattern because the pattern was knit bottom up and her numbers were for top down. And basically I just had to work her formula backwards. But that took a little bit of working out in my mind, which was good. And it worked out just fine. And I wanted to add a little width at the side seams just to give me a little more circumference. I'm kind of sad I did that because it is a bit baggy on me now. Although I could, I'm sure, cut that out, just do a steek and mattress stitch it back together. And I actually think one of these days I might do that. I'm very hard on myself. I thought I needed a lot more room than maybe I did. But I did add extra stitches on the side seams and knitted in a little panel in there, so that was a little modification as well. And then I got to mattress stitch the side seams, which I've never done before, and I had a jolly good time with that. I really enjoyed it. Of course it was just straight seams, so there was nothing like a set and seam to contend with, but it was still really fun and it worked out really well. And overall I'm really happy with the vest. I wear it a lot. I wear it over a thick long sleeve t-shirt, or maybe a nice white shirt, you know, with the tails hanging out below. Talking of which, that reminds me, I just saw a photo of Emily from Fibertown on her Instagram wearing her vest that she just finished, which is a lovely colorwork vest that she had to do a little surgery on the shoulder and sleeve area, but it looks like she finished it just fine, and she is wearing it in a very, very beautiful picture of her with, of course, her little Alice poo. So yeah, that's what's off the needles, and I'm not sure if there's anything else off the needles that I should be telling you about. I'm afraid to repeat myself, and maybe I just have, I don't know. So yeah, on and off the needles, and mark your calendars for coming this February and March in 2018. We'll be doing the New Hampshire Knits Mitten Cal again. It'll be the third time we've done it, and people are always still bringing that up to me that, you know, they really enjoyed it and will we be doing it again? Yes, let's do it again. And what I would ask is that you get in touch with me if you know of a designer or a mitten design, a colorwork mitten design that you really like, so that I can get in touch with the designers and see if they want to participate in the Cal by offering discount codes or patterns for prizes. So more on that as we get closer. Up next is a Coop Cast. I'll see you on the other side. We're very quiet this morning. It's a cold morning, but we're out. We've moved the chicken coop. It's on its trailer wheels, or it's on the trailer, so it's much higher than it used to be. And we've moved them down near the house, but off the driveway. Who am I talking to, chickens? Hello. 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 I know, it's cold. You might notice that they're quite quiet, and I think it is cold. And they're all right here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing one of the girls. And Lewis is here, a rooster. He's usually much more chatty. Yeah, but one of the bigger voices that we always heard when we came visiting was Kate. And Kate is no longer with us. Is she? We miss her, don't we? So, I haven't talked to you for ages. So, during the power outage that we had at the beginning of November, we lost power for 7 days. And during that time, Kate took quite sick. She started looking pale. Her feathers paled in colour. And her comb started to look more sort of greyish pink than red pink. So we knew she was sick. We knew she was sick. And so we made her a nice box of bedding. And we brought her inside. But she didn't eat at all, and she didn't drink, and she just sat very quietly. I don't know what was wrong with her. She was one of our originals, so she was over 3 years old, which is not that long a life for chickens, but she's a comet, and comets are big production chickens, and I think they have shorter lives as a result. So anyway, she passed away after spending 3 days in the house with me, or with us. And it was very sad to see her go. Kate was definitely one of my chatty girls. And so now we only have one of the original chickens. One of the Evelyns is the survivor of the first round of chickens. And they have definitely been the most friendly and tame of the birds. So these girls and Lewis now are, they're perfectly friendly at a distance. When I pull up in the car, they all come running to that side of their enclosure to say hello, which is kind of nice. But they're just pecking and walking around here. You can hear them pecking. Hello. So right now what we have in our little flock of 7 is a rooster. I don't know what kind of rooster he is. Bantam maybe, but no. And he's not making a peep today. He's usually screeching all day long. We've got one white leghorn, and she has a very big comb that flops over. And we've got one, I don't know how you say it again. Is it Americana? Yeah, I think it's Americana. We've got 2 red comets, one Evelyn and one Stuffy, I think. That's 4. And then we've got a black one. Where is she? Maybe she's up in the nesting box. I can hear them in the coop. Let's go look. And there she is. Well, hello, darling. It's okay. Hello. Hello. Yeah, very skittish. Went to pat her and she's off. But she left me 2 eggs. Or she was sitting on 2 eggs. They're not both hers. Lock that back up. So we must have 3 comets. Yeah, we got 3 comets, a black one, a white one, and a black and white one. And Lewis. So we're down to 6 layers. And I think only 5 of them actually, or maybe 4 of them only lay. There's a lot of molting going on now too. Which is they're losing their feathers as new feathers come in. And apparently when they're molting, they feel a bit wretched. And they look a bit wretched too, to be honest, with feathers coming in and going out. So we try and give them extra protein at this time of year and some fortification. The next big job will be to winterize the coop, which means for us, we wrap it in a lot of bubble wrap and plastic or whatever we have on hand, a lot of tarps and things like that. So it's going to look absolutely classy, like it doesn't already. But that will keep drafts and a bit of cold out. And we'll need to get their electric water heater going. Just going to go check the water. And they got plenty of food. Where's your water, guys? That's frozen. See, the outdoor water thing is completely frozen. But Jay already gave them some fresh water, so that's there. Okay, you guys are good. And they're getting lots of kitchen scraps, which is, I can see peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, pretzels, and some kind of mash. All right, birdies. Are we getting more chatty now? Lewis, are you going to say hello? Lewis. The minute I switch off, you'll start crowing. Won't you? Oh, Lewis. That's him chirping. Thank you for everybody who emailed or sent me a Ravelry message about Agatha and her loss of her. Thank you. Yeah, so since then Kate's gone too. But I think next spring we will be adding a lot more birds to get the flock back up. We've just been unlucky. We've had a few predators, and then just natural causes. So we're pretty low right now, but that's okay because it's winter. So that's it from the chicken coop. Till next time. And now it's time for a Woolly Thistle update. Some people tell me that this is their favorite part of the podcast. I was feeling slightly guilty about including this in the podcast. Turns out I shouldn't. Between the Woolly Thistle update and the Coop Cast, to hell with my knitting, right? I'm glad you like the different segments of the podcast. That's what makes you want to listen, right? So let's get on with it. The Woolly Thistle is doing super great as always. Oh my goodness, I had a huge response to the sale over the Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you all had a nice holiday. It was quite staggering and beyond my wildest dreams and even preparedness. I had not prepared for the response. However, all went well. My husband jumped in and we just got on with it, and we worked solid all day Saturday and Sunday. Some of the excitement for the sale might have come from actually computer glitches. Shopify managed to compound some of the sale prices by compounding the discounts. And so if you were shopping between midnight and 7 a.m. Eastern time, you got a screaming deal. Screaming deals were to be had, and lots of you took advantage of that. Screaming deals because I was literally screaming when I woke up and saw what was happening. I was freaking out. It was all I could do to keep the shop open while also repricing everything back to its original price, because for some reason the discounts had reset the prices in my hard copy. So I was very busy repricing things and resetting discounts so that the sale, as I anticipated it would happen. And probably from 7 a.m. or thereabouts on, that's what happened. Oh my goodness, I never want to do that again. The app I was using on Shopify did not let me specify when the sale would start. It had to start somewhere between midnight and 1 a.m. I believe, and I had no input on that. So, and I've used this app before to run sales and it's been fine, but not so much this time, and I will not use it again. I will have to find something else. Yeah, it was crazy. So, woke up to a very busy morning with several orders already in place. And I'm very philosophical when things like this happen. I'm not going to ask for anything back. Good on you for getting such a good deal. Jay and I call it the screaming deals. It was great. And I'm glad that if you got a really good deal. I'm glad you did. And for everybody else who continued to shop all day long, I finally shut the sale down about 9 o'clock at night because I had to go to bed, and I wasn't leaving this thing to switch off by itself. I was not going to go to sleep with that thing still running. No. So I wanted an early night, and I called it at 9 o'clock. So thank you so much for everybody who placed an order that day. It was astonishing. It was wonderful. And it means that we're getting lots of new yarns in. So we will be replenishing all the stock that went out the door. So there's lots of new Jameson & Smith, Blacker, Let Lopi and Ploto Lopi on its way. And that'll be in the shop as soon as it comes in. And also Tuku and Bahram U and West Yorkshire Spinners also will be replenished. I wanted to tell you about a new feature on the website, that if you are looking for something and it's sold out, there is now a button on that page that says email me when back in stock. You click on that, give them your email address, and as soon as I put it back in the shop, you get an email saying, hey, you asked about this, it's in stock. And then you can jump over and purchase it. It's working really quite well. So I get a lot of emails or, follow-ups asking me to let you know when such and such comes in, and I'm happy to do that. But it's pretty unwieldy to manage, and so this program does that for us. So if you are looking for something and it's out of stock, please use that button on the product page to request a notification when it comes back in stock. I want to tell you that the Knitting Goddess is coming to the Woolly Thistle, and I mentioned that up at the top of the show, that we have lots of her yarn, lots of her different lines of yarn coming. It's here. It's beautiful. It's colourful, hand-dyed yarn, and it's all British. It was grown in Britain, spun in Britain, and dyed by Joy of the Knitting Goddess in Britain. So I'm really excited. She fits the shop very, very well. And as soon as I am able to take photographs and get the shop populated with all the stock, it will go live. And I'm hoping that that will happen in the next week. So hopefully in the next few days. I'm very excited too that Berlin yarn is finally on its way over. I say finally, it's been on its way for quite a while, but it has to get from the Outer Hebrides to the UK mainland, which is my sister in Inverness. And then I have to get it from her to me. And that's nigh on impossible without spending huge amounts of money. So with the help of a network of friends and other suppliers who I think of as friends, it is making its way through the UK to then make it over the sea to us here. And it is on its way. As soon as it gets here, that will be going in the shop, and it's her 4-ply, which is brand new. So that will be in the nice, beautiful dark brown of the Hebridean, and it'll be in the grey and the speckled hen, which is a black and white marled yarn. Is that what you call that? And also, for the first time, we'll have her colours. There are several organically dyed colours in this 4-ply line that were inspired by the colours around her on the island. So I can't wait to see that for myself, and I'm sure I'll be wanting to cast something on with that right away. And Isle Yarns is on its way back too, which is great. We're getting more DK and more 4-ply. I have received a little bit already. It's coming over in stages, and I've received the first of several, and I've put a couple of kits for the Purbeck shawl up in the shop, with lots more coming. And as soon as it arrives, I will be putting it in the shop. Needles. I have lots and lots of Haya sharp sets on their way. They should be here in the next day or two. I'm seeing an uptick in those. Perhaps it's because the holidays are coming and you want to treat yourself or a loved one to a lovely Haya sharps needle set. I have the sock sets, the 2 through 8, which is called small, and the large, which is US 9 through 15. Each set comes in its own brocade case, which is beautifully made and is perfect storage for the needles. I have extra cables too, if you're interested in that, in different lengths. So yes, I'll have more of the smalls US 2 through 8. I can't keep them in the shop right now, so I've ordered quite a few and you should be good to go. Books and periodicals. Jameson and Smith's A Shetland Story, Lane 3 and Shetland Wool Week will hopefully all be back in the shop very soon. They've all sold out. I just restocked Shetland by Marie Wallen, North Sea by Marie Wallen, and Happet by Kate Davies is just in, along with Knitwit Magazine, which is a new magazine for the Woolly Thistle and is doing really well. Happet is such a lovely book. It's a small book and it only has 5 of her favourite haps and wraps. But of course it's got Kate's writing in there, and it's a really lovely keepsake book. Even if you have the patterns elsewhere, you know, you're also getting Kate's lovely writing as well as Tom's beautiful photography. Coming in and brand new to the shop is Cole Magazine, and I'm excited about this. I have a lot of them coming. I think they'll do well. And I also found out that Blacker has a pattern in there designed by Flossie Knits. And Flossie is the lovely designer that designed the Winterfold mittens for Making Stories Woods book that South Downs Yarn provided the yarn for the mittens kit that we had. Did you keep up with that? There's a lovely piece in Cole that's designed in Blacker yarns, so I'm hoping to have that topped up. I think it's Blacker Swan, if I remember right. Also new to the shop and coming in soon is Carrie Westerman's This Thing of Paper. Several of you have been asking for that, so that's coming in. And also Nancy Marchant's Tuck Stitches, which is her new book. And as soon as the distributor has that in the country, I will be having my order shipped out to me. So lots of good books and periodicals coming. Lane 3 is coming too. That'll be getting restocked. I know a lot of you are wanting that. Again, if you want something, let me know by clicking on the email me when back in stock, because what happens when you do that, it gives me a report of what people are looking for. I don't know who's looking for it, but I do know that someone is looking for it. So it might be 20 lanes, and that helps me figure out my order to Lane Magazine so that I get enough for the people who are interested in it. Fruity Knitting Podcast had a steek along and a discount code here at the Woolly Thistle, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who visited the shop as a result of that discount code. I appreciate your business, and I hope that you had a good time at the Woolly Thistle. And also enamel pins are in. The Woolly Thistle has its own enamel pin. I had to jump on this bandwagon because it's really fun, and they came out really, really nicely. They are full of color. So the thistle top is purple. There's a couple of different shades of green in the ball of the thistle. And it says the Woolly Thistle on it with a white background. So I'm really chuffed with these. I'm selling them off at a bit of a discount rate of $6 in the shop. So they're next to nothing, especially when you look at the prices of other enamel pins. So yeah, I want you to have a pin. So just add it on to your order. I think that's it for the Woolly Thistle update for now. Stay tuned by following me on Instagram at the Woolly Thistle and also on Facebook. I'm hoping to start working more on the Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, can you please like the Woolly Thistle so that I can start to get some traction going there? That would be fantastic. Listen, guys, I think all that's left to say is it's good to be back with you. I hope to see you in a couple of weeks. And if you go out, take your knitting. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to New Hampshire Knits. You can find the Ravelry group at NH Knits. You can find me on Ravelry as NHK Claire, on Instagram NH_knits, and you can email me at nhknits001@gmail.com. And you can find the Woolly Thistle all over the internet at the Woolly Thistle with 2 L's in Woolly.